Welcome to another video. We're going to be talking about unhealthy INTPs. But first, a word from our sponsor.
So, if you're an INTJ, this really is the appropriate place for you. You really should be being recorded because we really do have to run the world. There really is only one personality type. The other 15, well, somebody has to kind of set them all straight. And so it's critical that INTJs take their proper place in the world. That's all I really have to say.
That is my father. He's a wonderful individual. So we're going to be talking about INTPs that are on the unhealthy side of things. So here's a couple things that I have noticed in my life. One of the things that I find is that we are very vulnerable to the what if question. When I was younger, I always questioned like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And if I learn like about some crazy thing that lions do and they eat people, and if you don't have yourself ready or prepared in this certain way, then you could get eaten too, even though they live on the other side of the world, and I'll start panicking about it. Or when a situation happens, something bad happens, I always, or not even bad, just something happens, I don't know why or how it happened, I always assume the worst. So if I can't find something, then obviously someone broke into our house and stole the TV or whatever, even though, a TV would be obvious, but other things, just being always exploding to the biggest extreme, with fear. And then also with the what ifs, because you don't really know, because INTPs, or at least for me, if I couldn't see the other side and it could end up this way, out of all the avenues, yes, it could also end up very positive, but it can also end up very negative. And so those potentials always scared the poop out of me. And when I was younger, that was just something I always had a struggle with. And it's made me incapable a lot of the times to act upon things, just because I was more concerned about wanting to be prepared for the inevitable. Now I'm just like, so what if a lion eats me? So what if all these things happen? It's like, who cares? And so I'm now on the other end where I'm just like, meh. If a burglar came in my house, I'd be like, you want some donuts? When you start to see on the other side and about how those what ifs and extremes are not valuable, I find myself now on the other side. When you're assured about eternity, then really anything, it doesn't matter anymore. The greater issue is something else. I worry about other things. I can now have time to worry about other people and how they feel and them growing as an individual rather than worrying about myself so much. So that's one thing that INTPs probably have a struggle with, or actually diving into other people. They want to care about other people, but they're so concerned about their well-being potentially that they don't have time or mental capacity or heart capacity to actually focus on other people, which will have them weak in certain areas of their character. Another one is having this idea that we are infallible. And this comes about because we spend literally hours and hours and hours processing, thinking about our theories and our concepts. And when we come to a conclusion, we are very confident in it. The problem is, and this is what I've been noticing in myself, is that I might be coming to an actual conclusion that's right, based strictly off of what I know. And my whole entire conclusion could be completely thwarted if I am given pieces of information that I didn't originally have. But I spent so much time processing, thinking, and when I come to this conclusion, it makes perfect sense. All the pieces that I have obviously point to this. And so it's really easy to be very, grounded in it. And my whole idea could be shifted if I just knew this one little piece of information. And so I'm more quick to wanting to hear those things. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what you're saying is something valuable that will start to shift my original thought, or not my original concept, and be able to shape it and make it better. And so you'll find probably INTPs can be rather stubborn when you're trying to communicate with them. Sometimes it can just simply be that we don't want to be wrong. On the other hand, I find myself not really having the struggle of not wanting to be wrong, but either I find a couple things. Either I don't have I don't have the mental ability to actually perceive what the person is even trying to say. And so what they're saying is literally falling onto deaf ears, and I could care less of what they're trying to say. They can say it all they want. All I keep hearing them is literally like, it just sounds like they're doing this to me, and like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so stop trying to criticize me if you're going to keep talking like that. And so sometimes I have to find myself and just sit back. I'm like, okay, they keep saying this thing. And this was actually a lot with my mom and I. She's an INFP. And when we would talk about stories and more personal things, she kept bringing up all these like valuing and more personal, pragmatic, very sensitive to how people behave and what they value and how they get to where they're at, and signs of people doing things based off of previous experiences and whatnot, and how that affects the heart and how that affects people and the people around them and how they think. And the thing was, I just had no value for what in the world she was talking about, because mostly what she was talking about was very down to earth and very pragmatic. While me, I'm like trying to speak to her in this glorious abstract, in the way in the clouds, and she's just like, yeah, but there's this other thing too. And I'll be like, no, but there's this other thing. And so we would not really get into arguments, but I would not have the mental capacity to even like conceptualize what she's even talking about. And so it was very difficult for me to accept what she was trying to add on or build upon what I was saying. And so for other INTPs, if you find that they are, or you are very difficult to like bring in other people's insight, there is a good chance it's because they're saying something or sharing something that you don't understand where it's actually coming from. Because it's something that's outside your mind frame. It's more information you haven't. It's not just information, but it's a worldview, and it's a valuing system that you yet to have or discover. And so you don't have that to actually build up to your conclusion. And so I try to absorb as much as I can. And when you start to know that people at their fundamental level are truthful, like who they are as a person. And so I can then value their perspective. Now you start to find where their perspective starts to deviate from personal ambition. And so once you start to sense or see how they've kind of scrutinized their own perspective morally or whatever, based off of their own desire for life or things like that, you can start to see the difference and have the ability to know what to not listen, or not really not listen to. It's still good to grasp because it's useful for something else. But you'll be able to know what they're trying to argue and where it's coming from. Because there's been times when I was trying to argue with somebody, or not argue, but just I was trying to defend myself. They were challenging me that I was a judgmental individual, and I'm just like, I am not a judgmental individual. And I'm explaining to them how my mind works and how it may seem judgmental, but it's this. And I'll spare you all that. But as they were arguing with me, I was just like, what in the world is this coming from? Where are they coming from? I don't understand, because what I'm trying to do is clarify how my mind works. And they're like, why are you justifying why you're judgmental? I'm like, well, I kind of am justifying it, but I'm trying to clarify this is not what judgmental people do. When I come up to these conclusions, it's from deep thought. But then I found out that one of the people who's an ESTP, he was arguing from a heavy state of bias. There was something that I said that really attacked and attached to him that was personal. And so he was completely talking from a personal, kind of not really hurt, but there was things in his life where people that said what I said, and then it's kind of irrelevant, what I said would also reflect how people that are judgmental would say things. But what I said it in a very matter of fact, here's a thought, but it had no real meaning to it. but he was very emotionally triggered by it, and so that bias took away from him to talk reasonably. And then the other person, he was talking strictly and arguing strictly from his point of view. He wasn't allowing my new worldview to change the definition of his definition of judgmental. Now, what I might have said probably could have sounded judgmental. Doesn't mean that I was judgmental, but he wasn't allowing me to re-articulate what judgmental was. And I did the same thing for him, where I thought he was a very condescending individual. And then he explained to me kind of like how he was raised, and being in a locker room with a whole bunch of guys allowed him, or made him speak a certain way, and allowed me to retranslate what I thought was condescending to now, oh, that's not real. That's what I see where you're coming from. So I was trying to do the same thing. So INTPs always allow another perspective to grow on you. Learn their perspective, and not only just learn it, but even mimic it, imitate it, so that you can truly learn what that perspective is even like. And you'll be able to get a way wider worldview. And so other people that are arguing with other INTPs, that's a good chance of what's happening is that they absolutely have no worldview or mind. They have no mindset to actually grasp what you are saying. And what you're saying is contrary to the evidence that they have. And so automatically you're wrong in a sense. And yes, there are some INTPs that are just stubborn and that they will not admit to being wrong, but then give them a couple of days, they'll process it over, and they'll recognize, oh, yeah, they were right about that. So it's just okay. Say your piece and be done. Walk out. I mean, there's nothing, it goes nowhere. Just allow that information to sink in their mind. Another thing about unhealthy INTPs is the lack of desire to have responsibility. We want to have things as simple, as efficient, as self-sustaining as possible. And so it's very difficult for INTPs to behave in a way where now things are expected of them. They don't want to outperform, at least like for me, I would always be afraid to do the best I can right up front, because I put myself at this standard that I don't feel like I'll be able to consistently hold. When I was in track, I always tried to kind of run slow so that coaches wouldn't demand more of me, but they knew I could run fast, and so they're pushing me up to the head first division, and they were pushing me, but there was this expectation now. And so INTPs can have a real big struggle with expectation, and so they'll have themselves live in this simplistic life where there's no demand of them, no demand of their, like, who they are, no demand of their skills or talents, because one, we can be afraid that we won't be able to replicate what we did. Something worked, and we don't know how or why. And so that fear can keep us from doing things. And so that's something I've found myself trying to battle, because I'm just like, I can't live this way, especially if I'm going to be doing music and video work and stuff like that. I have to make sure that I am vulnerable and open to pursue these things. And people are going to expect, good things out of me. And really, almost every project, I have no idea what I'm doing. I come up to it. Sometimes there's something really clear in my mind, but there's other times I'm like, I don't really know what's going on. But they're like I don't know if you call it intuition, but the muscle memory of what I do, like especially with video work, comes back to me. And I'm like, oh, and I can now record just fine, and I know how to use the camera. I know what to shoot, and then piece it together, and allowing myself to arrive, and not just be afraid of people's expectations, because that's a huge thing. Fearing of other people's expectations just limits you from experiencing new things and finding new things about yourself. So with INTPs, that's something really big that we can struggle with, and especially if we allow that to attack us and win. So weak and unhealthy INTPs are going to have that. So that will also breed anxiety, because as you could tell, like what ifs, going to the worst conclusion, and then also fear of expectation, and then also the arrogance, so it seems, so that we're always right, really breeds a monster in us. And if that's not attacked, then it's going to cause a lot of anxieties. It's going to cause even anger issues. It's going to cause a lot of distrust. But it's because we can't really even trust ourselves, and other problems. And so, if you are an INTP and you're struggling with those things, you can get through that. You just have to. I mean, it's really nice to have a good friend that you can allow yourself to bounce off of. If you don't have that person, I mean, I kind of didn't really much have that person most of the time, and so just allowing yourself to know what you struggle with, but knowing the good that's going to come out of it. You're keeping yourself from yourself. You're frustrating other people, and you are going to come to a sense of reality when you are X number of years down the road and you never really did anything with your life because you were trying to be cautious. You got to make mistakes. You got to allow yourself to mess up. So that's why fear can be a really bad thing, even a selfish thing, I would even say. Because, so back to my example about when a robber comes into the house, and instead of freaking out and shooting him or calling the police, you can like give him donuts. And even though it's kind of a weird example, and I can understand if you have like a family and stuff, and that might be pushing it, but like you might find yourself in an opportunity to actually change somebody's life, all because you decided to give him donuts and not freak out, and instead of shooting him or something. But in any other situation where you might be too afraid to pursue something, and instead of, or because you want to like have all the control and have everything like planned out and in place, instead of doing that, you can allow things to happen. Like you have your end goal, but all the unknowns is going to create that fear. But if you try to control it all, you won't actually allow things to happen, and things that like really cool stories. You won't allow those things to happen. So as you can see here, Josiah, this beautiful man, he's gonna speak words of wisdom into you, because we're both white. We have white shirts. That's what I meant to say. So taking this seriously, Josiah.
Yeah, really? Is that what we're gonna do now? Okay.
Yeah. What do you want to share? He's an INTP also.
After you derailed that. Well, since I'm white, I guess. Oh yeah,
It's the microphone.
Hi. Just gonna stand there with it. Okay. Am I talking about fear, or am I talking about how is this related?
We had a conversation. It was, what is something about like you were?
Be an interviewer. Ask me a question.
I asked you a question. Okay,
Yes.
so Josiah, he is in the middle of this, I guess, like trying to figure out, like his wings are expanding, as you can tell from behind him. His little angel wings are popping out, and so he has a really kind of cool thing. He's learning some things about himself, doing things. The vagueness is real here. So Josiah, fill in the blanks.
Okay. Introduction did nothing for me. Thank you. All right. Hi, I'm Josiah.
I'm a drunk.
And I'm on step 4. I recently decided that I want to try doing stand-up comedy. I've done it once before, and it was really fun. But at the time, the reason I did it was I knew a little bit about stand-up comedy and how it worked. I just wrote jokes, and I went up on stage and I tried it, and I went, I thought that went really well. But the problem was that after that, I did some more research into comedy, as INTPs do. We absorb as much information as we can before we make a decision. And I learned so much that I realized, I should not have gone up on stage. I didn't know anything about stand-up comedy. And so since I was 19, so that was almost 2 years ago now. And since then, I've learned more about comedy, and I've had this desire to do it. That the desire has grown. It's gotten, it's been, eating away at my brain. I just want to do it. But the problem that we were talking about that you're trying to set up, but it didn't really happen, was the idea that I don't make a decision, or I don't act on something unless I feel like I have the actual confidence that I need to accomplish it. And the problem is that I believe that you really have to fake the confidence until you actually get there. And even though I know that, I don't really live that out very often. Sorry, I'm totally talking away from the mic.
Sir.
No. So the struggle I'm kind of going through now, or the process I'm going through now, it's become less of a struggle. It's trying to figure out, okay, I need to fake the confidence until I, just so I can get out there and actually act on something, not just stand-up comedy. I've also toyed around with the idea of starting my own YouTube channel, And it's the same deal. I feel like every time I make a video or had an idea, I would just critique and be like, no, that's not good enough. I'm not going to survive. I need to fake the confidence that I don't have right now so that when I actually start doing things and get down the line, eventually I'll have that confidence that I was seeking because I've had experience. My desire is I want confidence without experience. That doesn't happen. So fake it until you make it, basically. That was a very long way of saying something that I think is profound. I probably came up with, but fake it until you make it.
Oh yeah, but which is weird because especially with INTPs, we don't like to lie and we don't want to do something when we don't. I guess I can put my shirt down now.
Yeah.
But we don't want to like pretend to be something that we're not. And sometimes we find out that that's the only way to actually get there is to like falsify that. I actually do that with emotion. I know I'm not going to feel empathetic or excited or whatever. And so sometimes I just like fake it and over exaggerate just so that I can actually get myself there. That's like a different thing though. But thanks for sharing, Josiah. Beautiful man.
I wish we could use it, unfortunately.
What?
We'll just cut around all this because it's unusable.
I'm keeping that in there.
All right.
You know. So I'll see you guys in another video, another life. You never know. We have Riley in the back just laughing his butt off.
Yeah.
And so INTPs, find your wings. They're gonna sprout like little. See, look at him! Look at him go! Look at him go! Ah!